So we were in the middle of section 13.4, excuse me, last time, and we weren't really in the middle of it. We kind of did the beginning of it, and I jumped to the end of it, and there's a part in the middle that we skipped over that I want to run through with you as we finish up this section today. And that part deals with the other costs of homeownership. So a lot of times you will hear people say something like it's cheaper to own than to rent. And what they generally mean is that the cost that you pay to whoever you're paying the monthly payment is less. And usually that's a true statement, okay? So if I owned the house, it's actually cheaper for me to send the money to the bank every month to pay it off than if I'm renting the house from someone and I'm paying it to the person I'm renting it from. And that should sort of make sense because the person who you're renting it from needs to make money. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have this house and be renting it to you, right? It's a business venture. But there are other costs associated with a house than the money you send in rent or in the mortgage payment. And so there's three actually that we're going to talk about, but two that we can actually talk about very concretely as we're taking a look at this. And the first one is called property taxes. So property taxes are taxes that are collected by a county or other local government. They can cost up to several $1,000s annually. Both property taxes and mortgage interest are tax deductible. So we'll come back to that tax deductible bit here in just a second. But this is tax on a property you own, right? It's like when you go and you pay the tax at the grocery store. Okay, it's like that, except that even though you already have bought it once, you continue to pay the tax on it every single year. So interestingly enough, we got our property tax bill in the mail about a week ago. So I can tell you, my property tax for this year for our house is $4,044. That's what it is. Additional $4,044 for the year. And they allow me to pay it in two different statements and so forth because of the way that we have our property tax paid. But a lot of times people will do what's called escrowing their property tax. So what that means is that the very first time you buy the house and you get your mortgage, the bank, we'll say bank for the purposes of our discussion, the bank will say, okay, you're going to owe about $4,000 in property taxes. So we're going to make you pay at closing $4,000. And we're going to be responsible when it's due over the course of this next year of paying that $4,000 for you. But in the meantime, during the course of that year, they're going to divide that $4,000 by 12. Do you know what 4,000 divided by 12 is? No. What is it? I'm not good at division with the numbers like this in my head either. Somebody grab something for me. I threw out something that's not a very, in figure that's not working in my head. What's 4,000 divided by 12? You got it, Tyler? 333. That's actually what I was thinking, so I should have just said it. Anyway, okay, $333. So every single month, in addition to the mortgage that I'm paying $333 more to the bank, okay? And during the course of that year, the bank saves that $333 all throughout the year so that the next time that property taxes are due, it can be paid. Okay, that's called escrowing. Okay, but regardless, it's an additional amount every month, right? Or once a year, or however you're doing. It's an additional amount you have to pay. Okay, so that's property taxes. The second one is insurance. Okay, you should have insurance on your property. So whether you rent or whether you buy, this is something you should look into. So this is my telling you some wise advice kind of thing. At some point when you have a rental property, you're renting an apartment for the first time or whatever, ask about renter's insurance. It's super cheap, because you know what happens if somebody comes in and like steals all your stuff and you're renting? The landowner is not responsible. Yeah, he's not. Okay. If the house burns down that you're renting, the landlord is not responsible for your stuff. You're just gone. No more stuff. All right. Rental policies are super cheap. In fact, a lot of times when you get a rental policy and you bundle it, that's one of the words I want to use, with a car owner's policy, it's actually less expensive than the car policy on its own. Crazy stuff. Okay. That happened the first time that we got a rental property. My husband and I were first married. A more magnified rental property would be your homeowner's policy. So that does cover all the things inside the home, but it also covers the home itself. So if the home burns down, right, or there's a tornado, we're in Tornado Alley, right, it's going to happen. I actually live in a house that we bought tornado damaged. Completely a tornado damaged house. I didn't say we, my father-in-law did. He's a contractor, and he fixed the house up, okay? So I know that a tornado could hit where I live because it has already before, all right? Water damage. Right? So if there's a flood, there's certain types of property or certain types of policy provisions, whether there's flooding in your policy. Theft, somebody breaks in. We had an instance where lightning struck our house. I promise we don't live in a scary place. We've lived there for 15 years, but we did. Lightning struck the house. It didn't burn anything up, but it zapped a whole bunch of electronics that we had to replace, and including our smoke detectors. They were zapped too. We didn't know that for a little while, so we had to replace smoke detectors. So random stuff can happen, and your homeowner's policy will take care of that. Not only that, but not only is it a good idea, but it's required by the mortgage lender, right? So by the bank, they require that you have homeowner's insurance. Why would they do that? Why is that required?
They technically own the house.
They own the house. And if it burns down, Zayden, they want to make sure that somebody's going to pay for it, right? Yeah. So as long as you actually owe money on the house, the same is true for your car. As long as you owe money on your car, you're required to carry full coverage. If you do pay your car insurance, you might know that. Because you don't really technically own the house or in the car in the other situation. The bank does, and they want to make sure that there's a way for it to be paid for if something should happen to it. Homeowner's insurance. Maintenance. Maintenance is your next one. Maintenance will vary by home and by age, construction type, size, and condition. Things happen when you own a house that you're not responsible for if you're renting. Things like the air conditioner goes out, or maybe both of them go out in my house one summer. $8,000. Seriously. Okay? Things happen when you own a house. If you're renting the property and the air conditioner goes out, who's responsible? You. The landlord. If you're renting, it's the landlord. So you don't have that extra expense. And it's really difficult to know what that maintenance cost is going to be. Shortly after we moved into our house, we had something to do with the septic or the water. We're on a well, and we didn't know how some of the stuff worked with wells, and we had a problem with our well. And it was $700 right off the bat in the first year because we didn't understand that there was a maintenance feature, like something that we were supposed to keep maintaining, or something would break, and it broke. So there's maintenance costs. So this idea that it's cheaper to buy than to rent is a little bit misleading. Can you see that? That doesn't mean it's not a good idea to own a home, but you just need to be prepared for the fact that there's more than just the monthly amount that I write, for the mortgage itself. So we're going to take a look at an example. Ann and Andy, they find out that their annual taxes cost $932. Ooh, that's cheap. By the way, your property tax varies significantly based on where you live. In Ohio, when we lived in Ohio, property taxes were expensive, way more expensive than in Oklahoma. But insurance costs were way less expensive because they don't have tornadoes like they have here, right? There's other things to consider. So their annual taxes are $932, and their annual interest is $660. All right, so we're going to find their total monthly payment. So we had previously, let's go back and get it. Their monthly amount that they were going to pay for the actual mortgage is $592.89. So we're going to need that amount. That was what we called R before. Okay, and then we need to know the monthly tax amount. And we need to know the monthly, what was our other one? Insurance cost. Okay, so what would we do to find monthly tax? Somebody say it so we can keep moving. Thank you. We're going to divide it by 12. All right, so we're going to take 932, right, Gabriel? Divide that by 12. What's 932 divided by 12? I see calculators. Somebody grab one. Help us out.
77.66.
Thank you so much. We'll round it to 77.67 since it's a 6 repeating, I think, at the end. How do we get monthly insurance? Divide by 12. Thank you so much, Mark. All right, so we've got 660 divided by 12. What's this one? 55 is right. So what would we do to actually find out what their actual monthly expense is, not including something's breaking in the house like maintenance? We're going to add them all together, right? So we're going to add together the $592.89, the $77.67, and the $55. What is the total cost that they're going to pay each month that they know for sure? Okay, does that make sense? Okay, that still doesn't account for Murphy, right? Here's Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will. Okay, so it doesn't account for those maintenance issues, but it accounts for all the other things that are known. All right, one other piece of information in this section we're going to look at. There is this sort of idea, in fact, let me mention it over here because we talked about it here where it says both property tax and mortgage interest are tax deductible. Okay, so for the whole time you own the house, you're going to have property taxes. That's going to be true whether you owned the house outright, like you've paid the bank off, or whether you're still making payments. Okay, so that part doesn't change. But the second part does. Or the other part does, the mortgage interest. This mortgage interest changes, right? So at the point this next month when we pay off our house, we will no longer pay interest to the bank every month for our house. True? Yeah, that'll be lovely, okay? But what that means is I'm losing a tax deduction because it's tax deductible. So some financial advisors would advise you that you should not pay off your home early because you're losing a tax write-off, i.e. I'm going to have to pay that money in taxes instead of paying it to the bank. So we're going to consider whether this is good tax advice within the context of Ann and Annie's situation. And we're going to do it with kind of some roundish numbers so that you can see how this works. Remember, their loan was $100,000. The interest rate was 3.75%. And while we figured out last time that very specifically with this chart, in order to find the interest each month, we'd have to do this 12 times in a row and add all these interests together, right? That's what we would really have to do to find out the interest paid in a year. It's a good enough approximation for the discussion we're having for us to find out, there I am, yep, that's right. For us to find out what it would be in a year by considering it as a yearly amount instead of a monthly amount. So remember, our interest is found by doing principal times rate times time. The principal, when we first start, is $100,000. The rate is 0.0375, and the time we're going to look at is 1 year, just year number one. By the way, year number one is the year that we would owe the most, right, in interest. Y'all got that, right? As we move on, I owe less interest every month. We saw that last time. All right, so if we add all of the, or multiply this all together, what do we get for the amount that they pay approximately in interest the first year of the loan? Yep, $3,750. Okay, everybody good with that? Okay, so that's the amount of money the bank gets to keep for your doing business with them. And it's approximately that much because we looked at the scenario that's going towards the actual cost of the house too in this particular situation. Thus, the amount of income that Ann and Andy will pay in taxes will be decreased by the above amount. Okay, so here's the way it works. When you pay taxes, there's a tax amount you owe. That $3,750 that they just paid in their interest on their loan does not subtract off of the tax amount. It subtracts off their income amount. Okay? So if they made $50,000 in income in a year, we'd take that $50,000 and we would subtract the $3,750 from it. And then that's what we would say is our income in the year. Okay, that's what this is how this works. It's not subtracting it off what they owe in taxes, it's subtracting it off the income that they are perceived to have made. All right? So we're going to assume then that they're in a 25% tax bracket. Maybe they're not, but we need something to go with, and this will work just fine. No matter what percentage I use here, the ending result of whether this is a good choice or a bad choice is going to be the same. So I'm choosing a 25%. We're going to see how much this will decrease, their income, how much this decrease in their income will save them in taxes. So here's the way this works. That $3,750, they are no longer essentially going to owe taxes on that amount, correct? Okay. Well, the taxes they would have owed on that amount would have been 25%, because that's the tax bracket. So if I multiply $3,750 times 25% or 0.25, what will I get? $937.50. Okay, so this is the amount that they do not have to send to the government that they would have had to send to the government otherwise. Are you tracking with me? Okay, it's not the $3,750. It's 25% of that because they don't owe taxes on that amount. So they're saving almost $1,000 in taxes. I mean, that's good, right? That's good. I mean, I don't want to send the government more money than I have to, neither do you. So this is a good thing as far as, if they have a mortgage, they should take advantage of this. This is good. But here's the kicker. Ann and Andy are paying the credit union Let me fill these numbers in with you. $3,750, right? That's the interest. And they're not going to have to send the government $937.50. True? That's what's happening. So if they're able to make their payment and pay off their mortgage quicker, does it make sense for them to delay paying off their home for tax saving purposes? Okay, so I'm getting some yeses and some nos. Okay, so I saw Gabriel first. So Gabriel says no, and the answer is no. Why, Gabriel?
You're paying more, you're not getting as much, like you're paying more, it's overtime, essentially, because you're only saving $937 like once per year, essentially.
Yep.
Whereas at $3,750, you are paying over the year as well.
Yes.
And so, I'm not explaining as well, but.
Okay, so anyone want to piggyback off of what Gabriel said so far? Add to. Okay, I will. It's all right. So we're paying this amount of money, true? Well, Ann and Andy are. They're paying almost $4,000 to save $1,000. Did you get that? They're paying $4,000 to save $1,000. Now, that's not really why they're paying it. We understand that, yes? If they have to have the mortgage and they're paying the $4,000 anyway, absolutely take advantage of saving the $1,000. But if they could not pay the $4,000, that would be better than not saving the $1,000, right? And if they really wanted the tax advantage, you know what they could do to get the same tax advantage out of that? They could give it to a 501c3 organization, like your church, like a mission organization, and you get the same tax break. So if you really want to spend the $4,000, don't send it to the bank, send it to your church instead, and you get the same break. And then I mentioned escrow, and so let me just remind you what that was. Escrow is an account that's managed by the mortgage lender. The taxes and insurance are collected up front and then paid out over the course of the year. And so it's just kind of like a bucket fund within the bank that allows them to continue making those payments for you so that you don't feel it when it comes due, right? So we don't have our taxes and our insurance escrowed. So every 6 months I pay insurance on the house. And every year I pay taxes on the house. And the reason I do that is because I feel like I can save the money in a savings account just like the bank can, and then I get to keep the interest instead of the bank. A lot of times your mortgage industry won't let you do that. They require you to do an escrow. But that's what an escrow is it's just a savings account within the bank that the bank maintains so that your payments for your insurance and your taxes get paid on time. And we will stop there.